Welcome back, welcome back. The EU is in danger of breaking its promise to Turkey. That's what a group of senior European politicians and diplomats warned in a report published just this week. The Independent Commission on Turkey says that some European leaders are trying to prevent Turkey gaining full membership of the EU. And I'm joined now from Rome by one of those senior European politicians. Emma Bonino is a former European Commissioner and a Vice President of the Italian Senate. Emma, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning. Let's begin with why the blocking? Who wants to stop Turkey joining the EU and why?
Well, I would say that the two member states who have been more vocal on this question are definitely France and Germany, plus I would say Austria and others. And I think that whatever the reason they are mentioning, the real truth is that Turkey is a big country, 80 million people, and it's Muslim. And the question is that they are, in some way, it's ironic, but as soon as the negotiation started in 2005, some leaders immediately started to question the accession process, offering other vague options like special partnership or whatever it is. And this, let's say, these statements also fueled a sort of a resentment in Turkey, and where, by the way, the reform process has been basically frozen from 2005-2008. So I think we are in a very special moment in which a decision must be taken again in a summit in December, and we are pushing member states and leaders to let the process go, to continue, because not only for many reasons, but also because credibility of the European Union is at stake.
Is the fact that it's an Islamic country part of the reason for people blocking it?
Well, this is never said, but I have the feeling that basically it is the truth, the fact that it is big and Muslim. Evidently, I do understand the problems, but I also see a lot of opportunities, and I think this is a task we have committed to in 2004 and 2005 and before 1999, and I think we have to let the process go in the interest of the European Union, also because recently I would say that Turkey has made some positive steps as far as the Kurdish issue, as far as Armenia, for instance. And yes, there is the usual problem of Cyprus that has to find a solution right now. But I think that the European leaders should put more pressure on Cyprus leaders, for instance, to find the solution. But basically, the question of responsibility is to let the process continue.
To let the process continue, and sorting out Cyprus is one of the things where if Turkey could sort out its relations with Cyprus, that would be a big help, would it?
Absolutely, absolutely. I think that sometimes the Cyprus issue is becoming also a sort of scapegoat, and some member states hide behind the Cyprus issue. So also in the interest of Cypriots, both sides, I would suggest them to find an agreement so that they don't become an alibi or a scapegoat of a problem that maybe it's bigger and goes beyond their own difficulties.
And in terms of a poll last year that revealed that, in fact, the number of people in Turkey who wanted to join the EU had dropped to 31% or whatever, is that, do you think, genuine feelings of people in Turkey, or is it sort of frustration at not making any progress at the moment?
Yeah, I think frustration is a good part of this feeling, and people also have the feeling that whatever they do, in fact, Europe will never accept them. And I think our message to the Turkey people and leaders, it's really to try to overcome this feeling. It's true that some capitals are making statements which are not very positive, but there are other member states, take Spain, take Sweden, take UK, take mine, for instance, who have a much more positive approach on the process, and that see the difficulties, but particularly the opportunities and the need to have Turkey in the European Union. yes, it's also true that Turkey sometimes are not very helping. I mean, the recent decision of the Minister of Finance to put the largest fine on the Doğan Group, 2.5 billion, just yesterday. Definitely, this is a matter of concern, and so sometimes also the Turkish are not helping the friends they have in Europe.
Right. What are things like at home with your delightfully controversial president? Are people tiring of his escapades, or is he as popular as ever?
Look, I think that Berlusconi is just the symbol of the miserable conditions of the institution in my country. Where check and balance is not there anymore, where rule of law is just an option for everybody. And I do think that one of the major issues is that a recent report said that 70% of the people in Italy make their own opinion according to the television. And it's not a secret that both the private and the public television are controlled and manipulated. So the pluralism is inexistent in my country. Completeness of information basically is absent. So whatever, it's not the written press that makes the opinion in my country. So the key points are institution and pluralism in the media.
And obviously it surprises the rest of the world that he was able to keep the power he has over the newspapers and over the television. And normally in most countries he would have had to put them all in his wife's name, but that would be complicated at the moment.
No, that's exactly. But I would like to say that some friends from the opposition say that the problem in Italy is only Berlusconi, and if he goes, we will be right back in paradise. I think this is an illusion. It's not true. Our problem goes much deeper than that. It's a problem of reform which have not been done in the past 20 years under the responsibility also of the opposition. It's a question of institutions which are not taking up their own responsibility. Berlusconi is a symbol of this vacuum. It's not the only problem in my country. It's an illusion. I think they are giving public opinion also a wrong message.
Thank you so much, Emma, for your words this morning. You're in terrific form, and we're really grateful for having you with us. And
Thank you.
We hope you'll join us again. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our thanks to Emma. Now, Iran is closer than ever to producing a nuclear bomb. That's according to Glyn Davis, the American ambassador to the IAEA, who reported his findings earlier in the week. But what do the Iranian people actually think about their country's nuclear program and their outspoken president? Two people who can tell us are my guests right now. Azar Nafizi is the author of the best-selling Reading Lolita in Tehran, and her new book is called Things I've Been Silent About. She's promised not to be silent about anything today, and she joins us from the studio in Washington. Here with me in London is Hooman Majd. He's translated for President Ahmadinejad, and he's also the author of The Ayatollah Begs to Differ, which is out now. So that's all of your reading plans fulfilled for the next week with those three books, and here we are with the both of them. Why do we all think of Iran as conservative and very much one sort of country, when everything that you've all written says that it's much more diverse than that?
Well, I think that Western attitudes about Iran have changed since the election. I think we now realize in the West that what we did think about Iran is actually incorrect. And then there is a very vibrant society in Iran, and all kinds of opinions, all kinds of political movements. And we've seen that on our national news media in the West. And so I think the attitudes about Iran are changing in terms of Western perceptions of Iran now.
And is Iran itself actually changing at the moment, Azar?
Well, you know, Sir David, I think Iran has been changing for the past 30 years. It has been fluid since the very beginning. Only in West and in the eyes of the Western media, they have been mesmerized mainly by the ruling elite rather than by the very vibrant civil society. I remember at the beginning of the revolution, women coming into the streets and shouting, freedom is neither Eastern nor Western, freedom is global, and demanding their rights and protesting against the repressive laws that were being imposed on them. Students, journalists, ordinary people. So this society has been constantly questioning and self-questioning itself.
Wouldn't you say that, in fact, those protests and so on, those visible protests and so on, seem to have died down now?
Well, you see, every time this happens, the protests seem to have died down, and then they come back with a great momentum. If you remember, all through the 90s, there were protests, and in 1999, when the student protesters came out, and then it led to a big clampdown on the movement, everybody thought that people have gone home, but people hadn't gone home. They were just sort of gathering strength for the next wave. And I think it is in the nature of both the regime, because it has divisions within itself. It cannot solve its own problems, so it constantly has defections from within, and also the dissatisfaction of the society that is in advance of the regime, or at least segments of it, that will create this constant state of crisis.
Do you believe that the protests haven't gone away, they're coming back? Do you
No,
believe...
I mean, I think it depends on what you mean by protests. I don't think 1 million people are going to go out on the streets again, or 2 million as they did in the immediate aftermath of the election, which they felt, the people who went out on the streets felt were stolen. In fact, the leaders of the opposition aren't calling for that. They're in fact not calling for people to come out on the streets. But there are still forms of protest that are happening. Shouting Allahu Akbar at night on the rooftops, which is a form of protest against the government. Civil disobedience, which they've encouraged in certain instances. Nobody has asked for a general strike yet on the opposition side. But there is the ability to draw out protests again, if necessary. But we shouldn't look at the protests through Western eyes and think that, well, this is the way it's going to happen, the way it happened in Czechoslovakia, for example, or another place, that Iranians are just going to come out on the streets and overwhelm the regime. Go back to what you said in terms of the regime winning the day. Yes, Iran is reasonably stable right now, and they have managed to clamp down quite effectively on the protests and on that kind of disobedience and that kind of disturbance. But Azad is probably right in saying that it's simmering. It's underneath. There's still a lot of resentment. There are a lot of people who are willing to put even their lives on the line to protest what they think are unjust rules and regulations and laws that have been either enacted or have been in existence since the beginning of the revolution. But in terms of the regime being stable, it is relatively stable now, yes.
And in terms of President Ahmadinejad, do you think that he has regained popularity just recently compared to the outrage after the election results?
No, I don't think he's regained any popularity. I think he actually may have lost some popularity. It's entirely possible that Ahmadinejad won a fair number of votes, a very good number of votes. If you ask me personally if I believe he got 65%, I would say no. But he certainly has popularity. He certainly has a lot of supporters in Iran. I think it's very unlikely for him to have gained support in the last 3 months since the election. If anything, some of his supporters may have defected, having seen the kind of crackdown that he has been largely responsible for with his allies and the forces that are allied with him, and the kinds of, the charges of rape and torture and things like that that have come to light in Iran have probably caused him to lose some support. That doesn't mean he doesn't have support. He still does have tremendous support.
Azar, I mean, do you agree with that? Is that your analysis of the president?
Well, I think that the best response to that question is going back to Mr. Ahmadinejad's own actions. If he had tremendous support in Iran, and I do believe that he does have some support, but if he had tremendous support in Iran, why would they panic in the way that they did? Why do they even have to cheat and pretend that they have 65% of the votes? The way this sort of violence comes not out of a sense of stability, but it comes out of a sense of immense fear.
Thank you both. very much indeed for joining us.
Thank you, David.
In a moment, I'll be joined by one of the world's most celebrated chefs, Heston Blumenthal.